Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Carla from Rehan, Allahwala's World of Connections. And more importantly, right now, I am coming from the Ministry for English Literacy for the Insan Party, which means humanity, started by Rehan Allahwala. And the reason I'm doing this is so you can get to know people who know about English and can speak about English very well and learn about the purpose of speaking English in the world, in the global world today. Having said that, I have the wonderful Kamran Rizvi here. And he's with me on my Mindfulness show, as well as right now when we're going to be talking about the importance of English. And I just want to mention that this show, like all of my shows, is sponsored by the Institute of Peace, which creates one good conversation, or it's creating peace with one good conversation at a time. Having said that, Kamran, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Carla. My name is Kamran Rizvi, as is very apparent on the screen, and I have um, essentially spent 20 years in Great Britain, mostly in London, and I was there doing my O levels, A levels, then started my career at a young age of 18 with an international bank, and I've served with this bank for about 14 years. And in between, I performed Hajj in 85. I did my MBA in 1987, 88 from University of Strathclyde. And then I also got married in 79. I have kids. My son is 40, my daughter is 39, my granddaughter is 15, and I have two grandsons who are now 12 and 4, and I'm 28, Carla, despite all of that.
Wait a minute.
And
That's
then I moved to Pakistan back in 1991. It was precisely the uh, 10th of June when I came here. And on the 12th of June, I by chance got into the profession of learning and development. The first training course I ever attended was Dale Carnegie course in London, which was in 1981, on effective speaking and human relations. And I recall how useful it has been to me because it gave me a positive attitude, and my career graph started to shoot up. And I can vouch for two things: language and training. And these two aspects have been extremely useful to me and continue to serve me very well even today. So, with that simple background, I can say that I've now been in Pakistan for 30 years, and I've worked with the academia, with the corporate sector, development, and government organizations working on leadership and other skills associated with leadership of life, not just organizational leadership, but personal leadership. And I must say that the youth in our country, in Pakistan in particular, Carla, are very receptive, very eager to learn. And once their mind opens, they start to ask all kinds of crazy questions. And that gives me a lot of heart because it means they're learning. So, language, of course, is the way that we are able to communicate and connect with each other. So, that is my brief introduction. I do live in Islamabad and travel quite a bit, but COVID, as you know, has put some restrictions on it. So, working from home and meeting people in this fashion is also something I'm getting used to.
And I am so happy you're getting used to it because I love talking to you, and I get to speak to you
Thank you.
almost weekly, unless you decide to travel and leave me. Uh,
Yeah.
Now, the reason that I wanted to speak with you today is, as you know, I am the minister for English literacy in Pakistan. And because of that, I wanted to get your thoughts about how important it is for our youth, or the youth of Pakistan mainly, to begin using English as a skill, not to get rid of Urdu, but just to add it so they can speak with people around the world.
That's a good question. I would like to take the bigger picture first, and that is the thing that differentiates monkeys from humans is language. So that's the first thing. And our capacity for language and expression gives rise to learning and discovery and expression and art. Now, language, of course, I encourage everyone on this planet that the home town in which you're born, that local language is your root, and it's important to know that. Now, whether you were born in Punjab or Sindh or frontier, it is important to know your language, whether it's Dari or it's Punjabi or it is Sindhi or the local dialect. The next language, and in Pakistan we have Urdu. Now, Urdu is the bridge that connects all these diverse groups, and there are over 27 ethnicities and languages which are primarily spoken throughout Pakistan. And uh, in order to connect the national fabric and people within it, Urdu was created, and it's a combination of Persian and Turkish and Arabic and Hindi. So it's a blend of languages, which is what we now speak as a national language. And then, of course, if we want to connect at a global level, and this is where I find that English language takes um, the cake, because frankly, if you were to travel the world and if you wanted to be a pilot, for instance, the rules of IATA um, are that to be a pilot, and you must be able to speak English, as an example. And this is for all airlines across the globe. Now, whether you fly a Chinese airline or an African or a Pakistani airline, if you don't speak English, you can't be a pilot. And why is that? Because it is most widely spoken, and it also is important for safety of passengers, because communication between the control tower and the captain is vital. So, to connect internationally with a wider audience, English language is a very helpful one. Next to that is Arabic, and there is Spanish, and then there is Chinese. And I feel that a language that you learn opens that world to you. It's as important as that. And if I want to grow as an individual, and I would like our audience listening right now to keep this in mind, that if you want to expand your possibilities, then you need to keep in mind that the language you speak connects you to those people who understand that. You can live in their world, and they can come to your world, and you can create collaborations and partnerships and negotiate outcomes which are very, very productive. If you cannot speak a language, like if I went to Moscow tomorrow and I don't speak Russian, I'm done. I would be hand gesturing, and I'll realize how difficult it is. But imagine if I went to any country and I could speak that language, how much of access I would get, how much of an understanding. So when I go to North America, for instance, uh, I'm very comfortable because I can speak the English language. Now, if I go to Quebec in Canada, there they predominantly speak French. Now, I wish I could have spoken French. But from the international perspective, I think to go global, I feel the first language that we really ought to learn is English. And then, of course, I would urge that our mental capacity is to learn at least 7 or 8 languages without any question. There are people who, at the age of 12, can speak Spanish, Italian, German, French, English, Arabic, Bengali. You'll be surprised. I mean, our human potential is never tapped. And every language is a software that we install. And the younger we are, the easier it is for us to learn. And for those who only speak their mother tongue and the national language, I would think that at this point in time, English is one. And now China is also becoming very dominant as an economic force. And schools in Pakistan, Carla, you'll be so pleased to know, are teaching Chinese as a third language. And it's an option that kids are taking up. And Chinese language is far more complex and it has over 1,000 characters. My God, as compared to English, which is only 26, which is similar to the Urdu script that we have, which we write, that we also have approximately 26, 27 characters there. But I'm very glad that you are opening a world of awareness for people who want to achieve more in life, get investments from overseas for their pet projects, and use their capacity to connect with people abroad in order to achieve their goals through partnerships, collaborations, funding, and whatever else. I mean, there are lots of angel investors who would love to come to Pakistan, but if you can't put your case forward to them in a written form, clearly, accurately, and briefly, then you're going to miss out on an opportunity. So yes, for me, language is everything. And I would suggest that there are ways in which one can learn. And of course, we can discuss that as and when you suggest.
Although I have a question, I know that English is taught in Pakistan.
Yes.
I speak to a lot of people who come to me and they say, I cannot speak English. I'm not meaning to make fun of them because that's not where I'm coming from. They write it perfectly. They say it to me perfectly. They tell me why they cannot speak English. It's amazing. How can we know that when we learn to speak, we learn to speak because of what our parents have been speaking in that language. We hear it and we begin speaking. How can we change that instruction in not only Pakistan, but we're talking Pakistan now, so people feel more confident speaking? Because if they're only being taught how to read and write, they're missing the easiest part, and they're feeling uncomfortable.
That's very, very good, because the spoken English is something that needs practice. And I feel that presentation skills, public speaking skills is very, very important. And I think, like with everything new, people are afraid of public speaking, not so much speaking in English. And when you ask them to express themselves, they find Urdu relatively easier than English, because they dream in Urdu and it comes naturally to them. And those who do speak English, or so at least write and read English, need to, in their own heads, first read it, then they translate it in Urdu, and then make sense of it. So what happens is that when they're trying to speak in public in English, they don't come across as naturally, as fluent, because they haven't imbibed the language into their gut. It's still there, and they are constructing the sentence, deriving the meaning by translating it in their heads in Urdu and then saying it. Now that creates a lag. And as a result, they don't want to look like a novice, probably. So I would think that they need to be prepared, that in order to learn and grow, you need to make mistakes and you can fumble. But if you are afraid of people laughing at you or you looking a fool, then naturally you are denying yourself the opportunity to become better. Everyone at the start is clumsy. Everyone falls and raises the knee. And I feel that here, um, overcoming fear comes from courage. And I think that is something we need to do. And the more we are able to practice in private, nowadays we have these devices. And if we can even record ourselves speaking into the camera and playback after, say, 2 minutes of an interaction that I do and I say something, I will get some encouragement and some ideas of where I can improve. So today there is no reason why we don't practice in the safety of our own home and gradually, deliberately make efforts to become more fluent, clearer, and more effective. So that's something that I feel would help in developing confidence, because if we don't do what we fear, we will always live in our shell. And here is an opportunity we are missing out on. We are missing out on the global opportunities available to us if we do not embrace the language and deliver it with confidence, because after all, we're human beings. God made us. God doesn't make mistakes. We know that. Why do we behave as though we are? If I don't know a language, I'm going to fumble. Of course, I'll fumble. But don't be afraid of fumbling. Don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid of mistakes. It is part of the growing up process. Just look at kids. We were all kids once upon a time, and we couldn't even walk. We couldn't even crawl at times. And how we stumbled and then we became athletic is a journey. So I feel that it's that journey that needs to be taken.
How can we encourage the ministers of in education in Pakistan to begin encouraging the teachers to teach more in English, so the kids are speaking more and they're not just reading and writing, but they feel that confidence?
I feel that you need to create a space where, like in a gym, we go and practice on the bells and we do the treadmill. I feel that if a half an hour is allocated every day in a class where the students are requested to speak on a topic of their interest for 2 minutes or 1 minute, depending on the class size. Just that every daily practice would bring a huge shift and a huge change, because they are reading and writing. Give them that opportunity to just speak up. And it could be to start with topics of their choice, and then it could progressively build to extemporaneous speaking, where you throw the topic and they come up with it. I feel just half an hour, 45 minutes a day, or if it can't be done every day during the week, then at least allocate 3 days. Because without practice and feedback, they will not learn. So I would suggest that that should be done in the curriculum.
Do you think that should? Okay, you and I agree to that. How can we get it in motion so it does happen? Because it's something I'm very concerned about. Even people who come to me and they say, "Oh, I am a teacher of English," and I will have written something very general, like already I'm from Washington D.C., and they're saying, "Oh, where are you from?" Well, I told you where I was from. I'm surprised you're asking right now.
Yes, yes.
So, we need to grow that. We need to grow that awareness too. And
Yes, we
what do you
do.
suggest?
Well, I mean, I would. There are two parts to this. Those listening are teachers. Those listening are school heads right now. Those who are listening are students themselves and their parents. And frankly, developing self-confidence comes through public speaking. And for that, 1 minute a day on a topic of your choice, whether the school initiates it or not, those listening, parents and children in particular, uh, they can make a start. And at home, they can do it at home and become a support group to each other. because it's not just learning a language, it's actually clearing your mind. Because oftentimes people think that, look, I'm not going to go into a theater, I'm not going to go into acting, then why should I learn the art of presentation skills and public speaking? My point to them is that you're sharpening your mind. The purpose behind public speaking is that you are able to exercise your gray cells, and you know that you cannot speak without thinking, and the thought process is activated when you're speaking, likewise when you're listening. And to be a good speaker, you need to be a good reader. And Carla, I would urge everyone listening that they need to start by reading. Reading is the first step, because reading gives you vocabulary, it gives you content, it gives you insights and ideas, and it triggers your mind into contrasting your perspective with the authors. And I feel that if we don't make reading a habit in Pakistan, then speaking is not going to take off at the rate that it should. Because to speak about something, you need to have content. And for that content, unless you're learning stuff, and I find that reading is the most useful form of getting you into the writing domain as well as speaking domain, as let's say the preparation for speaking. But reading is essential, and I would certainly suggest fiction, and the kind of fiction that is not so easy to digest. You know, take on some difficult task, and it does not matter whether you complete the book. It is important that you spend half an hour with a book, and whether it's only a paragraph that you manage, make sure you understand that paragraph. Look up the words in the dictionary. If you're not making sense of it, go to someone, find a mentor, and there is usually someone who will help you. And they will explain what that paragraph meant, and then progress very slowly. And you'll be surprised how people then gain that confidence because they now have insights. So, yes, I would encourage reading as a habit. And you'll see that the societies where there are readers, there are speakers. But speaking doesn't happen in a void.
I'm just wondering, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, how can we institute with the government in the public schools? Maybe you handle it a little differently than we do in the United States. But what I would like to see is that the government begin to say part of English instruction means also speaking and
Yes.
encouraging the children to speak.
Yes.
Would you agree?
I wouldn't agree with you, because I think government has a limited role. It can only facilitate, and directives don't do much, because I mean you can pass a law that you shall love each other. I mean that doesn't mean that people must love each other. But I feel that there are very good schools in Pakistan, some of them, and there are teachers who care about their students. And if they are listening to this show, for example, they would realize that, look, we want the best for our students. And the best for our students is to give them the opportunity to express themselves and not to judge what they're saying, but to try to understand where they're coming from and to keep encouraging them. Because in the beginning, they will not necessarily come very articulate and very clear and cogent. It doesn't matter. The fact that they are making the effort, encourage that. And in so doing, you're building their confidence. So I'm sure that as part of their character building initiative, public speaking and speaking in English is great, because it is challenging stuff. And also encourage Urdu, no harm. But the fact
Right.
is that they need to practice speaking in their mother tongue and also in English, because what you're doing is making them more versatile and more adaptable and more agile and more useful to the world. And I feel from that perspective, not only would they acquire new knowledge better when by learning a new language like English, but also at the same time put across their ideas with impact and advocate certain causes with great effectiveness and influence. And you can even inspire people through your thoughts and gain coalitions and support on international fora. I mean, there are so many young Pakistanis who have made it on the international stage. We have UN ambassadors from Pakistan, and they've been able to come on the center stage simply because they were able to speak the language. Now, if they had not been able to, then no matter how passionate and how sincere and how contributing and how capable they are, they would not be able to make an impact on the international stage. So, yes, teachers can make a huge difference. And I don't think it needs policy, it just needs care. And the care is that, look, the students in my class, not only would they do better in their other subjects, but they will also do well in society when they go out there and make a contribution because they have that confidence and the ability to negotiate and influence and bring good to this world.
Thank you, Kamran. I know that you need to run, but you'll wait until I go off air.
Thank you.
Your knowledge is always so great and so wonderful to have. And I'm looking forward to you speaking at the conference for global English literacy on Sunday next week. This Not this Sunday, but the Sunday afterward,
August 8th.
August 8th. Thank you so very much.
Most welcome.
With that, do you have any last words of wisdom for our audience?
Yes, learn to speak effectively, prepare for leadership. This is what Dale Carnegie used to say in his lifetime. And with English, you will not only make impact in your own country, but also abroad. And why not if you can? Because after all, we are here to serve humanity and not just those living in Pakistan.
Thank you so very much. And I'll remind you that this show is sponsored by the Institute of Peace. I'm going to wave goodbye, and we'll see you again on August 8th with Kamran. And Kamran, wait for one moment.